And welcome on in to the next NHL season preview show. And today we are going to be talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Oh
And I
yeah.
have on my left Lance, on my right Kevin. They both co host a Blue Jackets podcast. So you'll be able to find the link to their Twitter in the description below. Make sure to go give them a follow. But it's great to have two Columbus fans here to help me discuss the team. So now, usually we would jump right into additions and subtractions and discuss the players that have come and gone in the offseason. But Columbus is in a kind of interesting situation in the fact that they've had their head coach come and go before um, preseason has even began. So I'm not going to go deep into detail about the situation, but Mike Babcock in and out before preseason starts. It was the right move based on what has come out that he leaves. So I think that's the right move. How it's going to affect the team, that's difficult to predict, and that's why we're here is to kind of predict what we think is going to happen. So I'm kind of torn because the younger players who are going to be the backbone in the future of the Blue Jackets, they're the ones who apparently, whichever ones it was, had the most issue with what happened. There's also stuff that hasn't even been released to the public, so we don't even know how bad the whole situation was. But I think that Columbus is in good hands now, and I think uh, the players are going to be focused on hockey. They're going to be focused on this next season. So I don't think this whole situation is going to affect them negatively as people might think. If this was a few weeks or a month from now, if we were a couple weeks into the season and this happened, then I think that would be a lot worse. But I think because it's happening now, early on, I do think Columbus will be okay. I don't think it'll be a huge disaster to the start of the season. But I want to hear your guys' opinions. We'll get to playoff futures in the end, but I don't really think that most Columbus fans are expecting the playoffs this year. But what do you guys think overall about the whole Mike Babcock situation before we get to the first part of the show? We'll start with you, Lance. What's your opinion on the whole Babcock situation?
What a mess. I never wanted to be part of. I mean, obviously, I'm not part of it, but being a part of the fan base, it's unfortunate. The upper management took a risk in hiring Babcock. Babcock had a bunch of nice lip service interviews and media uh, events, during the whole summer and whatnot. And yeah, it's unfortunate. It's also it's unfortunate reality of the situation is maybe it should have been Pascal Vincent from the beginning. We talked about it already. He is a fantastic coach. He was a fantastic option, but I think in part, um, the Blue Jackets may have taken this risk because they knew they had him, and so we cut our losses and we move forward.
For sure. Kevin, what's your whole thoughts here on the Babcock situation?
So I have many thoughts on this. And my first thing is it's very disappointing how this thing all came about and how everything. I'm also disappointed, very disappointed at the Spit and Chicklets for how they handled this because they knew about this and they sat on it for weeks. They knew about it in July and then they didn't talk about it until September. In a sense, it was basically a hit job against the Blue Jackets or you screwed them to a certain degree. And that's just not cool. You want to say you're a players podcast, but then you sit on that and you wait on it. Clearly, you're not that much of a players podcast. On top of that, you throw Boone Jenner under the bus to the point to where he has to come out and say something. And Boone Jenner, from his own personal experience, said that he didn't think everything was fine and he didn't have that big of an issue. And then you turn around and again and call him a liar. And then today, there's a video going around, a clip from their show, and those derpy people are saying, we didn't want to fire Mike Babcock. Yes, you did. Your actions suggest another story. Look at what you did. You say you don't want to fire Mike Babcock, but your actions suggest otherwise. You did everything you could to make sure that Mike Babcock did not have the job with the Blue Jackets. What Mike Babcock did was bad enough that the Blue Jackets felt that they needed to do something. Originally, when I heard the news, I was like, I don't know about that one. But you know what? The more I thought about it, to me, it made perfect sense because the Blue Jackets are a young up-and-coming team. They need a guy who can help give them some structure, help them to play some defense and develop talent. They need a proven winner. That was Mike Babcock. He's proven it time and time again. And some of the stuff he's done, I hate it, and I wish he wouldn't have done it. But sometimes you're going to have people like that where sometimes they're not the greatest person, but they get shit done and they win. And honestly, obviously now it isn't anymore. But at the start, it just kind of seemed like a hit job. And a lot of the people who are doing it, spitting chicklets, it didn't seem as genuine because, of course, these people don't like Mike Babcock. So, of course, they're going to try and get rid of the dude that they don't like. I think Mike Babcock would have been a good coach for the Blue Jackets. I was interested to see how it would have gone, but he took it too far. The tweet, to me, that really did it for me is because I think Mike Babcock knows that he doesn't have the greatest history. And I legitimately believe, I think he's trying to be different. Some of that may be lip service, but I legitimately believe to a certain degree that I think he really means it. Because how long have you never heard about Mike Babcock never talking about anything about, mental health plans, talking to the player one-on-one, getting to know the person and all that sort of stuff? And I legitimately think he's trying. But the thing that got me, I think that got him, was this. There's a tweet by Emily Kaplan that came out that said, sources said, again, we don't know if this is true or not, but I'm probably going to take a guess it's true, that sources said that Mike Babcock, with the whole phone thing, I think he's trying too hard to overcompensate for his bad behavior and try to be more nicer than he actually is. And that may have creeped some people out that just like, dude, you're trying too hard. You're trying to be someone that you're not. Just try to be yourself. Basically was what the gist of the tweet, basically. That also would have been nice if, Mike Babcock was the coach, but he isn't. He took it too far. Now, putting this aside, Pascal Vincent, in my opinion, based on what I've seen, he's going to be a good coach. He's proven he can develop talent, and he's not going to put up with people's bullshit, and he's going to provide the structure that the Blue Jackets desperately need so much. And I'll say one last thing, and then we can move on to something else, which is this. Some people doing a victory lap saying, yeah, we got rid of Mike Babcock. Oh, to a certain degree you did, but to a certain degree you didn't. Because yesterday in the press conference that Pascal Vincent had, he said that when talking to Mike Babcock, they were setting some things up and how they wanted to run the Blue Jackets. They think basically the same in terms of how you play the game of hockey. And he's going to use a lot of the stuff that he learned from Mike Babcock and use it as coach of the Blue Jackets. So in that way, you think you got rid of Mike Babcock, but you didn't, because Pascal Vincent, who I think is going to be a good coach, is going to use a lot of the stuff that he learned from Mike Babcock and use it to help out the Blue Jackets.
Awesome. I think people didn't really want to. It's not that they wanted to get rid of Babcock's coaching, the way he coaches hockey. It's him as a person. So I think Pascal, taking what he learned from him, hockey wise, is not going to be a bad thing at all, because nobody's questioning Babcock's history when it comes to the game and winning and that. It's his personable
And
question.
I agree with that, but it just kind of seemed that way. And I know I said one thing and I lied, sorry, but that'll be done. Which is another reason why they took the chance on Babcock, because years ago they were in a similar situation. They needed someone who's proven good at winning and, has a questionable behavior. They did it with John Tortorella. And back then, it was not as bad, but it was a similar thing of, oh my God, he's a meanie. He's done all this stuff. What are you doing, Blue Jackets? Why are you picking this dude? Ba, 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 ba. And in the end, it worked out. Tort showed that he's not the same person as he is. Mike Babcock, oh well. And that's part of this, I think, why they did Mike Babcock. Also, Mike Babcock has been basically friends with JD and Yarmo for years. So I think perhaps that's their fault for thinking maybe a good friend of theirs got trusted and they got burned, unfortunately for them. And that's just all I'm going to say in this regard. But it is what it is. So we're going to move on from Mike Babcock, and I'm excited to see what Pascal Vincent has to say.
Yes, the Babcock era is over. Additions and subtractions here for the Blue Jackets here in the offseason. And not a whole lot when you look at it. Not a whole lot of additions, not a whole lot of subtractions. But when you look at what the Blue Jackets have done, they added 2 defensemen. And I think the 3 of us can probably all agree that they needed defensemen, especially with injuries last year. Adding defensemen was a very important thing, and that's what the Blue Jackets did. Adding Provorov and Severson, Aaron Dell. You don't really want him to be seeing much ice time. If Aaron Dell is in net, I will be betting the over in whatever game Columbus is playing in. Hopefully, for the Blue Jackets' sake, he's an AHL depth injury only type goaltender because he is way past his prime, if he even had a prime. But Michael Hutchinson, John Gillies, the other 2 guys, depth guys, no big losses here for me for the Blue Jackets.
Yeah.
A couple good additions. Kevin, we'll go to you first this time. What do you think additions and subtractions for the Blue Jackets this offseason?
For the subtractions, I just want to say that they were good depth pieces. That's all you can say, and that's what you needed from them, and they did their job. So thank you for that. They did what you asked of them. Michael Hutchinson, John Gillis, Gavin Bayreuther, Lane Peterson, all depth guys that the Blue Jackets needed to play to an unfortunate season with a lot of injuries and other shenanigans and other stupid stuff going on, unfortunately. As for the additions, all this is much needed, because the last 2 seasons defensively have not been the greatest for the Blue Jackets. They just haven't. So many games where they have it where they just can't get it out to save their own life. And it just doesn't matter, because you can have the greatest goalie in the world, but it isn't going to mean shit if you can't get it out of your own end. Because what would happen is, whether it be Elvis Merzlikins or Jonas Korpisalo or Michael Hutchinson or John Gillies, they're doing the best they can to help keep the Blue Jackets in it, but they can only do so much. And then eventually, boom, you let in 2 or 3 goals because you just can't get it out of your own net. And defensively, just not the greatest. So Ivan Provorov, Damon Severson, much needed defensive help that the Blue Jackets really, really, really need, because they have the talent on offense. Sure, they have some talent on defense. A lot of their talent as of now is on offense. And the past 2 seasons, they've shown that they can score goals and put up the goals like crazy. It's just about, can you keep the puck out of the net? And most of the time, the answer was no. So having someone like Ivan Provorov and Damon Severson is absolutely going to help that out big time. As for Aaron Dell, the only reason I see him being with the Blue Jackets is because it'd be a good backup to have down in the minors, so you can have someone to pull up, because they have their other good goalie prospect, Jet Greaves, who's shown that he can be good both with the Blue Jackets and in the minors, but he's just not quite ready yet, and you'd rather not pull him up if you had to. So Aaron Dell, that's a good move as well to get some goalie depth. So, Adam Fantilli, 3rd pick, that's also good, and good drafting. So all this stuff is good, and I like it. So great to see.
Yes, we will get to Fantilli, and we'll get to the other forwards here soon. Lance, what do you think additions and subtractions here for the Blue Jackets?
Well, Phil, as far as the subtractions go, I wasn't surprised by many of these. Maybe like the Gavin Bayreuther a bit, but um, if he can go on to bigger and better things than playing mostly AHL minutes, then good for him. I hope he has the best of luck. I wish I could have maybe seen a little bit more of Lane Peterson. He was kind of like a low key, like under the radar add on from last year that I don't think many people really paid much attention to. Um, but yeah, so with Hutchinson and Gillies going, and also losing Corpusalo last year, having Aaron Dell around, which I think he's still on a paid tryout, professional tryout. But I would 100% not be surprised to see them add him just for some depth. We have plenty of cap space. Um, unless there is another better goalie candidate out there that we come across, uh, uh, our projected cap space is up over 4 million, so that's plenty. We have like 2 contracts available yet out of the 60 contracts you're allowed to have. So there is one up for grabs, and we have plenty of money to pay somebody what they would want to be paid for. I'm personally excited to see. I mean, you mentioned it yourself. The defensive issues we had last year. We can't all put oh well, your best defenseman was out, Orwensky. Well, yeah, that's one guy. One guy doesn't make the whole team. One guy doesn't make the whole defense. So, um, yeah, he's our all-star, but we just didn't have much else showing up, in the way of defense. So, some tried and true guys who may not be, the bet 100% absolute top cream of the crop best in the entire NHL, but definitely a welcome addition, in my opinion.
Sure.
And
We'll go on to the second segment, which is upcoming free agents. Looking at what the Blue Jackets will be looking at after this year. And one thing that I've noticed right off the bat is goalies. No upcoming free agents when it comes to goalies. So their goalies are signed over the next couple of years. And when you look at the Blue Jackets here, a lot of RFAs. So a lot of these guys are going to be re-signed. They're not going anywhere. It's just a determination about how much they're going to get paid. If I was a general manager of the Blue Jackets, I would be focusing on getting Kent Johnson re-signed. I'd be focusing on Kirill Marchenko getting re-signed.
Yep.
I really like Liam Foudy as an non Blue Jackets fan. Obviously, I'm a Wild fan, so no real reason for me to really like Foudy, but I think he's a really good scrappy guy that you want to resign. You can resign him pretty cheap. Jack Roslovic, hometown kid, UFA, but he's not going to break the bank either. Jake Bean, maybe RFA defenseman as well, and there's some other guys there, but the real big focuses, I think, should be Kent Johnson and Kirill Marchenko. You want to keep those guys around. But obviously, RFAs, they're not going anywhere. The Blue Jackets will re-sign them. It's just about how much they're going to get paid. Lance, upcoming free agents, who do you want the Blue Jackets to re-sign the most of these guys on this list?
Well, there's 4 on here that I'm really really high on, and you said 2 of them. Kent Johnson, of course, Kirill Marchenko, of course. The third one here is one that's maybe, I guess, less expected from those outside the Blue Jackets bubble, and that is Alexander Texier. He was not with us last season. He had chose to play in France to be closer to the family. We're not entirely sure what's going on, and no one's pressed him about it, so it's fine. He's back. He's here in the United States. He's going to play this year. And then the fourth is actually Nick Blankenberg. So we need one healthy season from Nick, so that way we can fully comprehend like how he is as an NHL player, because I think he's fantastic, but he needs to stay healthy. I do see some value in a couple pieces here, though. We have Roslovic, Danforth, Robinson too. I mean, they're all great value pieces. But if maybe we could, get something for them, if as opposed to nothing, if they choose to walk.
Yeah, for sure. Kevin, upcoming free agents for the Blue Jackets, who do you want them to focus on re-signing the most?
Just a quick little thing about Lane Peterson from the previous slide is how the Blue Jackets got him was an interesting story, which is they're in Vancouver, they're playing the Canucks, and he's playing for the Canucks, and the Blue Jackets play against him. The game's over, and the Blue Jackets claimed off the waivers, and they pulled him out of the Canucks locker room and basically said, "You're with us. You're with us now." So thought that was just kind of funny. From that point on, for the rest of the season, Lane Peterson was with the Blue Jackets. Anyways, me personally, Kent Johnson, Kirill Marchenko, those are the big ones. Eric Robinson, he's a big dude and he's fast and he's shown he's got talent and he can be good. But like one of his big things is he just shoots and he misses the net wide. And it's so frustrating because he gets so many chances because he's fast. And a lot of times he'll just shoot it wide. And it's like, damn it. And Liam Foudy, he might be the cheaper replacement for Eric Robinson because he's younger and he's basically just about as fast as Eric Robinson with similar qualities. And the only reason you'd pick Eric Robinson over him because he's bigger. Jack Roslovic is a little bit inconsistent, and that's been the story of him when he's been with the Blue Jackets so far, which is through the 3 seasons he's been with the Blue Jackets, there's just moments where he looks just god awful, and then just moments where it's just like good. And he's like, wow, that looks awesome. And you can see it. You can see it. Like it's just there, where in moments where he just turns it on and he just goes off. And it's like, man, that's a great play, great goal, awesome play. You wish he could do it more consistently. And that's where I think someone like Babcock would have been interesting to see if he can get some juice out of this guy and develop into more talent. And I'm of the opinion that Pascal Vinsky and probably, knowing his history, can do the same thing. It's probably his last shot, though, because the Blue Jackets got so much up-and-coming talent that if you don't do it this season, you're done. And I can say that about Robinson. I can say that about Justin Danforth. I can say that about Emil Benstrom. Liam Foudy, not as much. Like Lance said, Alexander Texier is an interesting situation, is that he started out by his real big moment was scoring 2 goals against the Lightning in the playoffs that helped him win the series in 2019. And then the following year, he had overtime winner, and he really took off in the playoffs against Toronto. And then the 2021-2022 season, he just took off even more, played really good on the fourth line, and earned his way to, more minutes higher up in the lineup. And then he broke his hand, and then whatever the situation happened with him, we are not exactly sure. And then he went to go play over in Europe, and he looked good over there, but it's like you took a year off from the NHL. So it's like, what's the Texier? Are we going to get the one that was good before you left, or are we going to get a different one? We just don't know. Hefty Duck, or Lance, sorry, force of habit, says with Nick Blankenburg, he's right, which is Nick Blankenburg, he's shown he can be a good player, but he's hurt. And why he gets hurt? Because he's that guy that's 100% balls to the wall, never quit attitude, which is great. And it's awesome to see. But that's why he gets hurt, because he puts himself in those situations because of that balls to the wall, never quit attitude, because he gets hurt because of that, because he just doesn't know when to pick his spots, when to just go for it, and when to just step back and say, I'm not going to do that. If he can just stay healthy, he should be fine, and we'll get to see what he truly is on a consistent basis. Jake Bean, 2021-2022 season, he had some good moments, some overtime winners for the Blue Jackets and other good stuff. This past season was really a good audition for him to show what he had. He played some games, looked good, but then he got hurt, and that was it. So now the Blue Jackets have even more depth defensively, and he may have lost out on his chance. He may have. He may not have, but I have a feeling he might have lost out on his chance to show us what he has, because he might be buried down on the depth chart.
Awesome. So really, Kent Johnson and Marchenko are your big guys as well that you want to be resigned. And then Texier, I guess he has to prove it this year, but he probably won't cost very much anyways.
No,
If he was to get re-signed, especially
and
taking the year off, he won't break the bank either. So the Blue
I,
Jackets should be okay.
other than Kent Johnson, Kirill Marchenko, I would probably say Texier and Liam Foudy as my guys. If I had to pick people, I would try to sign.
Yeah,
Besides those two, based off of what we've known right now. It may change by the end of the season.
yeah, of course. This year could definitely change things. Going to the third segment is a possible lineup. Now, this is not my lineup. This lineup is from Daily Faceoff. So this is what they have projected for this season. And Fantilli did not disappoint in the prospects tournament.
Nope.
Already kind of flashing what the Blue Jackets could have upcoming. So obviously, when the season starts, he will be a player prop that I will be looking to bet. I think we'll get value on him, especially early on in the year. But then, of course, if he plays like he did in the prospect tourney, that value will go away quickly. But on the second line, that's a really nice, fast, young second line that I think just has a ton of potential. Obviously, the top line is what it is, with a Gaudreau, Jenner, and Line. The third line, Sillinger definitely has a lot of potential. Bemstrom as well. Roslovic, as he said, um, can be inconsistent, but when he's playing well, he's good as well. A physical fourth line, some depth guys. So the forwards look really good, I think, for Columbus. A lot of potential. So there may be growing pains. There may be some slow starts, but the future is bright for the Blue Jackets, especially offensively. Looking at the defense, Werenski, Severson, a good top pair. Peak and Provorov on the second pair. Boquist, another guy with a lot of potential on the third pair there with Gabranson. Uh, Bean and Blankenberg would be extras there. And then when it comes to goaltenders, Elvis Merzlikins is projected to be the starter with Danil Tarasov as the backup. Um, we'll have to see how the goalies do because the goalies in Columbus have not really had a very good time the last few years. But with the additions the Blue Jackets have made, we'll see what happens. Overall, though, defense and potentially still goaltending is the weakness of this Blue Jackets team. But the offense, when it's hot, I think it's going to be really hot. So there'll definitely be money to be made with Blue Jackets team total as well as player props, I think, heading into the season. Kevin, what do you think about this overall possible lineup? What do you think about the lineup here?
That fourth line that is on the screen is exactly the fourth line that I was talking about, that Alexander Texier played just so good on during the 2021-2022 season. Just, I mean, that whole fourth line in general is one of the best lines that the Blue Jackets had all season, to where at that time, head coach Brad Larson felt like that he could throw out that line at any point, at any time in the game, and nothing bad was going to happen. It's just a good, productive line that could play some good defense, shut down other teams' lines, and occasionally it would get you some offense. And that was the line where Texier played really good, and eventually it earned him more minutes higher up in the lineup. So it'd be interesting to see if he can just keep that going this upcoming season. And the reason for Jenner, Gaudreau, and Line, that was one of the better lines the Blue Jackets had this past season, but also a reason why it just worked so well is that Jenner is a grinder. He is the perfect dude that just sits in front of the net, get the greasy goals, the deflections, and he goes out there, wins the board battles, and hunts pucks and get them to Gaudreau and Laine. And Jenner is really good at faceoffs. He's really good at defense. He's defensively responsible. And Gaudreau and Laine, they're, not to say they can't play defense, they can. Laine, to his credit, has actually been much better defensively since since he started playing with the Blue Jackets. But those two types of guys are more offensive, so you need someone to play more defensively responsible, and that's Boone Jenner, and that's why that line works. As for the second line, eventually Adam Fantilli is going to get to a point to where he will take that top spot, and he's going to be fine. But for now, let's put him lower in the lineup. Show us what you got. Give him easier matchups. Let him ease into it, and eventually work your way up. Because that's what the Blue Jackets did with Pierre-Luc Dubois. They put him lower in the lineup. They let him ease into it. And when he was ready, they put him up on the top line. And outside of like one game, he never really left that spot. And he became the top center that the Blue Jackets thought they had until he was a stupid shenanigans and got him traded. So having someone like Fantilli is just absolutely perfect because now they have that top six center that they desperately needed ever since Pierre-Luc Dubois left. So I like that line. Johnson, Fantilli, Marchenko, good. Johnson, he's offense all around. Just ridiculously good with the puck, passing. He does have a good shot. The Michigan goal he did this past season, which is like really damn cool. Just a beautiful goal. Even a little bit better defensively than people give him credit for. Fantilli, stud. Excited to see him play. Marchenko, the dude is just a sniper. That dude can score goals like crazy. He started out the season by just going 13 straight scoring goals without an assist. And he broke the team record for most goals by a rookie in Blue Jackets history. It was 20, but now he has 21. And if he played the entire season, he easily could have gotten at least 30 goals. And then, so I like that line. The third line, Emil Benstrom, he's like Jack Rossack. He's an up and down guy. He's shown he can be bad, but he can also be good. He has a great shot, especially on the power play, but inconsistent. He's inconsistent, and that's just the thing. He'd be better suited playing on the first or second line, but the issue is, who are you going to take out to bump him up there? And the answer is, you're not. You're not taking anyone down. So that's just the spot he has to be in. Cole Sillinger, I like him. He has the potential to be a young, up-and-coming good player, maybe, top six center, maybe third line, real good guy. Jack Roslovic, like we said in the show, he's just inconsistent. He can be bad, but he can be good. And like I said, with the fourth line, it's a good fourth line, and interesting to see if that can keep that going. Fooding Danforth, good pieces for the defensemen. I like it. Werenski Severson, Provorov, Peak. Got Branson, a good defenseman, 6'5", 220. I like him. Physical. We need that. Boquist, I like that as well. Being Blankenberg. Goalies, this is where it might be a little because Elvis Merzlikins, again, one of the many players on the Blue Jackets roster, he's just inconsistent. He's shown he can do it sometimes. He can't. Can you put it all together? If he can, the Blue Jackets are going to be fine because in the past, they've shown that they can win games and make the playoffs by just even having average at best goaltending. And with a more defensive system that Mike Babcock would have had, or Pascal Vincent, in this case, taking everything he learned from Mike Babcock and putting it to use, it should be fine. Danil Tarasov, he's mostly been hurt, but when given the chance, he can be a good goalie. The dude's like 6'5". He's a big dude. Shown to be a good goalie, and Aaron Dell, like we said before, probably just a good depth piece to have, so you don't have to call up Jet Greaves. And I'm going to stop talking for now so we can hear what Hefty Duck has to say.
Awesome. Lance, what do you think about the possible lineup here for the Blue Jackets?
Hey, you know what? I mean, pretty much Kev said it all. I don't really disagree with much what he said. We can go to the next topic if you want. I don't really have much to add to that.
All right. Anybody you really want to keep your eye on this year? Anyone you think that
Oh
might
yeah,
have a really good season?
Marchenko.
Marchenko.
Uh,
I do have
Fire
to
forward.
say about Marchenko, there's only one Kirill the Thrill in the NHL.
We
So
disagree with that. Sorry.
yes, we'll
We
agree
need a
to
new
disagree
nickname.
with there is only one Kirill the Thrill. That's
But
Kirill.
now listen, Kirill Kaprizov, a damn good player. He's fun to watch. I'll give you that. The Minnesota Wild have a damn good one there. It's great to see every player, every team should have a player like that that's just damn good and fun to watch, and a guy that you can count on, and everyone can point to that guy and say, that guy's damn good. And he's like one of the big studs, the star players that you can point to and market like crazy. Uh, out of. And hey, the Wild have that, and the Blue Jackets have that as well. One guy I will say is a lot of people probably aren't talking about, and that's understandably so, is their top Russian prospect, Dmitry Voronkov. This dude, he's a center. He's projected to be a bigger, better version of Boone Jenner, 6'4", like 200 plus pounds. The dude's like a huge, like gorilla. The way he just uses his size to just bully through people and get greasy goals, score goals, and that whole bit, win face-offs. He already showed some of that physicality over at the Traverse City tournament. It's just amazing to watch. Him and Fantilli on a line was just awesome. So Dmitry Voronkov, that's a potential name to look at, an under the radar guy to think about, because when you're looking at the Blue Jackets, people are probably going to say Boone Jenner or Johnny Gaudreau or Patrick Laine or Zach Orensky, Kirill Marchenko, Kent Johnson, and even Adam Fantilli. But Dmitry Voronkov, keep that in mind. Oh, Hefty Duck, he got his finger up. You want to say something?
No, I just want to move on. Sorry.
Oh.
We were
all
about to
good.
move on to the next topic. If
We'll
you
get to
don't
the
mind.
final segment here before we end on the show, which is
go.
future bets. Taking a look at the future bets for the Blue Jackets. And really, President's Trophy, win division, win conference, win Stanley Cup. Of course, those are really gigantic odds, and they look really nice. But I don't think it's time for the Blue Jackets yet. Of course, finishing at the bottom of the Eastern Conference last year, bottom of the Metro. I do think they have a very good shot at not finishing last. I think that's fair to say. I think this Blue Jackets team is definitely going to improve um, year after year over the next few years. I think they'll improve, but not quite this year. When it comes to point total, it's 72 and a half, 59 points last year. So it would take a big jump. They did have 81 the year before. So injuries definitely helped push them down to the 59. But yeah, you got a really good draft pick out of it. So that's all
Right.
good. No betting for me for the make the playoffs. Really, with Columbus, not a lot of bets I'm looking at. Fantilli to win the Calder. I think if I was going to pull the trigger on anything, I'd be sprinkling on that. I think that could be something to look at. Fantilli points at 46 and a half. It's hard to tell, obviously, because he doesn't have any previous NHL time. But starting in the second line in this Blue Jackets roster, 47 points, I don't think is too crazy to ask. But for me, Fantilli to win the Calder is the only thing I'd be looking at here for the Blue Jackets, betting wise. Lance, any future bets that you're looking at for the Blue Jackets?
Ooh, you know, that Gaudreau goals one is tempting. Just because I know we have I know we have it in this team, but we're finding that number one center. I think that will help bolster that top player's goals. He had 21 last year or something.
Yeah, 21.
I think Jenner was the only one with 26, so no one was even close to over 28. So that's would I absolutely take, like, would I bet today on that? Maybe not. Maybe like a month into the season or something. The Fantilli points is also tempting. Um, Very tempting. Merzlikins wins. While I do believe in improvement in the goalkeeping here, hopefully soon this year, I wouldn't take that bet. I wouldn't be on the over anyway. And yeah, the Calder one's just about the one that I would be most curious about with Fantilli. I mean, you said it. It's hard to tell without any sort of judgment, like where those point totals are going to be. Can he break, Kirill Marchenko's record from last year with 21 goals for the Blue Jackets record? And man, that would be another interesting one to bet on. Yeah, as far as making the playoffs, everything else, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I also don't think we're going to be in last place this year. So just to be realistic about it, yeah, I would be on the under for most of this.
Hey, no problem. Like I said, your guys' time is coming. It's coming. Might be a couple more years, but you'll be back in the playoffs soon.
Oh yeah.
Kevin, what do you think here? Future bets for the Blue Jackets?
So in terms of, I'm looking at all this stuff on the screen. Some seem more likely than others. The one out of all of them I would probably pick is Adam Fantilli winning the Calder Trophy. And the reason I say this is, this whole potential, group of people, rookies that more likely than not are coming in the NHL, Bedard, Fantilli, Cooley, and you can go down the list of a whole bunch of other people. It just looks stacked from top to bottom that this might be one of the best ever races for who gets the Calder. Also, and this is no disrespect to Connor Bedard. I know he's projected to be a real good player and everything, but where is he right now with the Blackhawks? He doesn't really have a lot of help. So that might help drive down his point totals and goal totals a bit. Whereas if Adam Fantilli, he's got a better setup around them. He's playing with a Boone Jenner. He's playing with a Kent Johnson, a Kirill Marchenko, a Johnny Gaudreau, a Patrick Laine. He's playing with a Zach Werenski. All those guys are going to help him be better. They're going to help him get more goals, more assists, more points. And, the same thing, it goes the other way as well. So if I had to pick one, that's the one I would pick based off of, obviously you said, in the Traverse City tournament, Fantilli just lights out, played really good, got a hat trick, 5 points in 2 games, the hat trick and all that stuff, really good. But I would pick that because it's based off of right now, Adam Fantilli has a better setup than what Connor Bedard has. Adam Fantilli has more players around him that can help him be better and help him get more goals, points, assists, and the whole bit. As far as for the playoffs, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if they did make it. My highest is 4. My lowest, let's say about 5 to like 6. I don't see them finishing last place again because the only reason they were even close to that was the whole injury thing. Under normal circumstances, that shouldn't have happened. They never should have been even close to that or getting Adam Fantilli, but they were. So it is what it is what it is. The 2015 to 2016 season, the Blue Jackets had a similar season. It wasn't a very good season. They finished with the 3rd pick. At that time, they got Pierre-Luc Dubois, who was going to be their top 6 center for the future. To a certain degree, it was, but it ended up being that way. And the season after that, the Blue Jackets that went on a run where they won 16 games in a row, 108-point season. They made the playoffs. They set record for most wins in team history with 51. And then that catapulted them to 4 straight trips to the playoffs, 2 playoff series wins, knocking out Tampa Bay and Toronto. So that's why I think they could make the playoffs. If everything goes right, they have a better defensive system. If they just get average at best goaltending and defense around them, they've shown they can score goals. So they should be fine. But if they don't, I think they're going to be at least a team that's fighting for a playoff spot till about the very end. And if they don't get in, oh well. But if they do get in, that's great as well.
All right. Yeah, I do think we'll get some big underdog prices with the Blue Jackets. So there definitely will be money to be made on this Blue Jackets team this year. Make sure to give Lance and Kevin a follow. The link to their podcast will be in the description below. Thanks, guys, for coming. Best of luck to the Blue Jackets this season. Expansion cousins of the Minnesota Wild. We came into the league at the same time.
Absolutely. We had one of my favorite games in Blue Jackets history from a regular season standpoint was back in December of 2016 on New Year's Eve when the Blue Jackets had the 14-game winning streak against the Wild's 12-game winning streak. Like that
you guys
game
just barely beat us. Yeah.
Like that game was a regular season game, but I'll always remember watching that game. It was a regular season game, but it had a playoff field type atmosphere because it was so tense, and you had two good teams going head to head with their winning streaks, and the scoreboard says 4-2 Blue Jackets, but honestly, it didn't really feel like a 4-2 game. It felt like a real good, tight checking, good competitive game, and to this day, that's one of my favorite games I've ever watched the Blue Jackets play because it was a good competitive game back and forth, watching two good teams with a 14-game winning streak versus a 12-game winning streak.
Yep.
For sure. Well, thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you on the next show. Thanks, guys. Thank you everyone so much for watching this NHL season preview show. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons as we continue on breaking down all 32 NHL teams, which will lead to the regular season when the Getting Wild with Terry and Friends NHL betting show will return. Thank you everyone for watching. Of course, make sure to follow everyone in the description below that was on today's show to show them some support. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you on the next show.